A minimum viable product is a product with just enough features to enable validated learning on the product and its future development. Effectively, it's like a proof of concept or a demonstrator or a prototype, but with the emphasis much more on learning about the product and how to change and improve it rather than prove it per se. I think most businesses startup businesses believe that they should have a minimum viable product, and most of them should do. I've seen many businesses think that the MVP is an end rather than a means to an end, and that somehow having an MVP is some badge, some box ticking, something that is going to automatically progress them towards success or achieving investment. And I fundamentally don't believe that is the case. I think that the minimum viable product should be thought of far more as an experiment, as a learning exercise, and that what comes first is a thorough analysis of the risks of the venture. The minimum viable product is an enormously useful concept and a welcome addition to the entrepreneur's toolbox. I think there are two reasons for this. First of all, it poses the venture and the opportunity as a hypothesis rather than some polished, perfect gem. And the MVP is that experiment that forces you to identify the weaknesses and as the leaps of faith in the product, and devise the experiment that helps you to test those, to see whether they're untrue, to learn fast and fail cheap. I think the second reason why it is so important is that it leads to action. There's a tendency for early stage entrepreneurs to keep perfecting the product, imagining how wonderful it is, whereas if you focus on an experiment or an MVP, that actually forces action. It forces you to test your basic underlying assumptions. The MVP was developed with web businesses in mind. However, I think its usefulness as a tool extends far beyond mere web businesses. I think that any type of business, the questions are the same. Where is the weakness in this business? Where are the leaps of faith? Where are the dependencies? What might go wrong? How can I devise some quick and easy experiment that will enable me to test those weaknesses and learn how I could make the better business? One of the dangers of the MVP is that students can perceive of it as some kind of universal panacea, which it definitely isn't. It is simply another tool in the entrepreneur's arsenal. There are some questions where the MVP isn't particularly useful. For instance, on the timing of market entry, where trend analysis or looking at analogous markets might be a much better way. When you're looking at margin, where Porter's 5 forces and a much greater analysis of scarcity up and down the value chain would be a much better approach. And for instance, if sustainable competitive advantage is the main uncertainty and vulnerability of the venture, in which case you're far better off looking at analogous businesses and the dead pool of businesses and learning from what others have done and how others have managed to succeed in businesses where frankly there should have been a huge competition. For any entrepreneur who wants to create a minimum viable product, the first step is to think about what the success of your venture is dependent upon, and then devise an experiment that tests that dependency. It's the scientific method. It's what any good engineer would do: construct a hypothesis and test it.